Hello and welcome to Eagles East. This is the Prostki Counterstroke. Well, we're up to the 8th of February now. Fair weather for a couple of days, which means that the Corps have advanced quite nicely. According to orders and instructions, 13th Division leading the way, driving up the road from Gugny, followed by Corps Headquarters and 22nd Division. And on the northerly route, 21st Division, followed by the Corps Cavalry, who are trailing behind. Probably need to be in front, to be honest. For events this week, it's wheezy sick kid. Marshal Guy has become ill, probably because he spent too much time with Dysentery Division, and all movement is halted for one day due to staff dithering. However, I don't think that's going to affect things too much, apart from the location of Lemmerde, who's stopped off at Gugny. Right, time to look at where the Russians may be located. In the vicinity of Wargames, we have the cavalry, who are obviously screening the rest of the corps from the advancing French. It's suspected that 14th Division are in Zodzi, the Corps HQ itself still at Bialystok, but the Russian 33rd Division has made a surprise appearance just to the southwest of Prostki. They've obviously lured the French forward and will now go on the attack. The Russian division is led by General Piotr Pisov. He has 3 brigades of line musketeers and 2 foot batteries. His division is reasonably strong, having just suffered the usual attrition over the past few months. And poor old Cul de Sac doesn't have many troops to hold back the Russian horde on the north. He'll have to do a holding action and send for help from the Corps Cavalry, who are also suffering a fair bit, but are going to be sorely needed by the 21st Division to hold back the Russians. Zooming into my campaign map, this is what we see. The Russians advancing southwest from Prostki, and the French advancing northeast from Korovo. The ground is flat and fairly featureless, with the woods either side of the main road. And this is how that translates to my table. French coming up from the bottom left, and the Russians entering the table from the top right. Patrice, Porcine and the French Corps Cavalry will arrive on turn 10. So here's the French 21st Division marching northeast along the road from Korovo. Got 13th Grenadiers out the front, 12th behind. There's old Cul de Sac with his ADCs and the caisson. And on their left flank is Dragoons with the horse artillery. Not a lot of troops to go around. And here's the Russian 33rd Division coming out of Prostki. Puskov Musketeer Brigade coming down the road first. On their left it's the Luger Musketeers. There's old Piotr Pisov. And there's the Ostashkov Musketeers just to the north of the road. Stand by for a meeting engagement. First turn and it's ADC availability. 1 reroll for the French because of the adjutant. No. So it's 3 to the Russians and 2 to the French. So the Russians will have 2 brigade rerolls, 1 with the brigade to our foreground and 1 with the 1st Brigade, which will also have a forwards tasking. Meanwhile, the 2 French brigades would just have a reroll. All brigades are compliant, so initiative. And for once, that's going with the Russians. Luger Musketeers are on the move, as are the Ostakosh. Let's roll for the Puskov Brigade with their forward tasking. That's 5 plus 10 is 15, plus 9, 24. They're still in column formation. I just had them in single file for the start of the game. No firing, no combat, end of turn. Turn 2, ADC availability. Well, that's a disaster for both sides. Let's see if the French can get another one. They can't, so it's 1 for them, none for the Russians. Well, there wasn't a lot to do there with ADC tasking. There was 1 brigade reroll for the French, but they were okay with that. Unfortunately for the Russians, this brigade closest to us has gone hesitant. So initiative, normal service resumed, goes to the French. Right, well, the French don't want to advance too far. Lead grenadier unit will go into line. And these grenadiers will go to their left. Horse artillery needs to get into action as soon as possible. I think the rear dragoons will just move up alongside their compatriots. And they're all still in column formation. Russians will continue to grind forward. And that's the end of turn. ADC availability. 1 reroll for the French. Yep, 3 for them, 2 for the Russians. And for the French, there's a brigade reroll for the cavalry and a scouts ADC for the initiative. Whereas for the Russians, they'll go for a brigade reroll and a forwards tasking for the Luger brigade, which were hesitant last time. Well, everybody's compliant apart from the Grenadiers, who've gone hesitant, and that will negate the scouts tasking. Initiative, 1 extra dice for the French. But with the scouts tasking, they can re-roll 1. So they'll go for that. Makes no difference. That is even Stevens. And the French win draws. Right, well, the Grenadiers are hesitant, so they're not going anywhere. But what I might do is get them to change formation into line once the cavalry have moved out of the way. So this regiment will come up here. And horse artillery will move forward and unlimber. Russian artillery will move forward and unlimber. And the rest of the brigade will start to move up. Forwards tasking for the brigade on the left. 7 plus 10, 17 plus 9, 26. And on the right. A little bit of firing. The horse artillery will open fire. 1 casualty dice only. They will target the Russian artillery. That is 1 casualty. And a turn. ADC availability. Reroll for the French. No. 3-2 to the Russians. Well, that's quite simple there for the Russian Pskov brigade. They've got a brigade reroll and an artillery assault, whereas the French just have 1 artillery assault for the horse artillery. All brigades are compliant. Let's go for some initiative. Well, would you know, goes to the Russians. Left flank will continue the advance, as will the right. We need to get that artillery into action. And the Pskov brigade will also just push up, but not get too excited because we want to do some damage with the artillery. Right, the dragoons here, they're in the way. I should probably push them over to the left before now, but I'll do that. And the grenadiers will advance. Can't go very far because they're in line. Time for the skirmishers to push out. Should have probably done that before. And in fact, I will move them forward a bit. And the French will do the same. So we'll have a bit of skirmish action. 5 dice for the Russians. 3 hits, 1 casualty. And 4 coming back. 3 hits, 1 casualty. Now it's artillery assault by the Russian 9-pounder battery, and they're going for the cavalry here. 3 extra casualty dice because of artillery assault, and the cavalry are in column. 5 casualties and a discipline test. Massive hit. And there is actually bounce through fire on the rear regiment. But they're okay. Dragoons are veteran for the discipline test. 6. They're okay. French horse artillery will also open fire, again targeting the Russian guns. 2 extra casualty dice. And that's 2 casualties and a discipline test. Russian guns are line. And that's no effect. End of turn. Forces are now starting to engage. I've pushed forward the skirmish lines from all brigades now, so don't forget. And it's time to get it on. ADC availability. 1 reroll for the French. Okay, so it's 2-3. Nothing subtle about this at the moment. Both the Russians and the French have artillery assault. The Russians also have brigade reroll for this brigade on the right. Everybody's compliant. Initiative. Well, that is emphatically with the Russians. Luger Musketeers are going to push up on the left. Ostashkov on the right. And the Pskov Musketeers will just stay where they are at the moment. But I think it's time for the dragoons to get out of the way a bit. So away they go. And I'll leave the horse artillery where it is. Skirmish firing. 5 dice for the Russians. That is 4 hits, 2 casualties, and that's a base gone for the French. Returning fire with just 3 dice. That is 1 casualty. Now we've got the artillery duel. The 9-pounder of the Russian here against the 4-pounder horse artillery of the French. It's a mismatch. 2 casualties. French will return fire. 1 casualty. That's the end of turn. ADC availability. That's 3 all. Well, both sides have gone for skirmishers and artillery assault. It's not pretty. But the dragoons are hesitant now. They've gone back. They don't fancy it. Horse artillery out on the limb. And also for the Russians, over here we've got the Heston Brigade on the left. So 3 dice each for initiative. And taking the 2 lowest, it goes to the Russians again. Have the dice gods decided to change sides? Well, because the Russian left flank is hesitant, we're going to push forward with the right. They still need to get that gun into action. The rest of the Russians will stay where they are. But I think the French will nudge the grenadiers up a bit. Skirmish tasking for the Russians in the centre. Well, that's 5 hits, 2 casualties. French will have 5 dice in return. And that is no effect. Oh dear, oh dear. And on the Russian right, the skirmish line here is just in range of the horse artillery. It's 2 dice. No effect. Back to the artillery assault for the Russians. 3 casualties and a discipline test. Right, these horse artillery are now up to 5 casualties. They are line. So they're okay. And they'll return fire. Still on artillery assault. 1 casualty. That takes the Russians up to 5 as well. That's the end of turn. Well, it's turn 7 if I've done my calculations correctly. Just a point of clarification. That battery had 6 casualties, not 5, so they're now worn. Obviously the horse artillery are on 5 casualties, so they're looking a bit dodgy. Now, it is a few turns away from reinforcement time for the French, and they're in a pickle. Not quite sure what to do. Skirmishers are in danger of being destroyed, and that means that brigade will falter, so I'm going to have to pull them back. And the cavalry, well, they're doing bugger all. I might have to get them to clear away those skirmishers, because they're not doing anything useful at the moment. Dear oh dear, Cul de Sac, you're in trouble, mate. ADC availability. Not what the French ordered there. Reroll. Oh dear. No. 4 to the Russians, 1 to the French. Not a lot doing for Cul de Sac's gang. He's gone for a brigade reroll with the cavalry. For the Russians, skirmish tasking in the centre. Brigade reroll on their left. And on the right, skirmish tasking and a brigade reroll. Now I have been doing artillery assault on the batteries with more than 4 casualties, so naughty me, can't do that. 4 casualties and above is no artillery assault. All brigades are compliant. And the French just sneak that, which is lucky. Right, still got no charges, and I think for movement phase I'm going to dissolve this brigade skirmish screen. They're going to go anyway, and that will fall to the brigade, so they've gone. I think the cavalry on the left have to do something rather than just hang back here, so they'll move further over to the left. Russian skirmish line will push forward here, and the Luger Musketeer Brigade will push forward on the left. Ostache Corps should be slightly cautious here. First of all, the skirmisher screen will move over, and they'll just move up one of their battalions on the right, and the artillery. That is the end of movement. Skirmish firing.
I'll do the Pskov Brigade skirmishers first. Now, they've got multiple targets here. They can concentrate on one, and they'll go for this one. 7 dice. But that was appalling. No hits. And over here it's 6 dice. 1 casualty. They're up to 6. And I'm afraid because the horse artillery are a small battery, they are dispersed. So there's only 1 battery in operation at the moment. That's the Russian 9-pounder here. Have they got the range for the cavalry? The answer is yes, it's just inside effective range, 40 centimetres. But because they're worn, it's an inferior volley. That's no effect. And I'm afraid I've made a fatal error with the Russian skirmishers here. They've gone too far forward and are in range of the Grenadiers' muskets. Oh dear. It's a weak volley by the 12th Grenadiers because they're a small battalion and the target is skirmishers. But that's 1 casualty, and that's a base gone. But also, because it's veteran in line, they get an extra casualty dice. I forgot that one. Oh, well, that was no effect. The 13th Grenadiers, veteran in line, plus 1 casualty dice, but inferior fire because of skirmish target. 1 casualty. That's the end of turn. ADC availability. 3 for the French, 2 for the Russians. The Russians will have a brigade reroll on their left flank. Another skirmish tasking in the centre. Whilst the French are trying to gear up a bit of a counter-attack with the dragoons. Brigade reroll and a forwards tasking. Trying to clear those skirmishers away. 2 hesitant brigades there. The Grenadiers have gone hesitant again. I don't know why, they're not moving forward. And also the brigade on the Russian left. Initiative. It's with the French. So the French are going to charge these skirmishers and try and clear them out of the way. I don't think they've got enough gallop to get to the battalions further on the right. So it's 2d6 plus 6, not 10 as I've been doing before. Bit of an error there. Plus their usual move of 18. So it should be okay. 7, yeah, plus 6, 13. 31. No problemo. So the cavalry will charge. Skirmishers evade, and they have to withdraw, and they'll become unformed. They also take 1 casualty dice. Casualty, no effect. And the dragoons take the ground. Well, that's given the French a little bit of respite, but how long will that last? For movement, I think the other dragoons will come over here, give them some support. And that's it for the French. These skirmishers will drop back so they're not in musket range, certainly from the Grenadier line. The 9-pounder battery will unlimber here. And I think just to be on the safe side, they will form line. And here. The Pskov Brigade will advance. They've obviously gone in front of the battery there, but I want to get these moving so they can smash home to the Grenadiers. On the left, the Luger Brigade's skirmishers can still move forward, even though the brigade itself is hesitant. And now it's into skirmish firing. So 6 dice here with the skirmish tasking. And they'll be going at this battalion. 5 hits, which is 2 casualties. And 5 dice with the other skirmish line. And that's another 2. And the only battery able to fire is the 9-pounder. It's just unlimbered. 1 casualty dice only. They're going for the dragoons. No effect. No combat. End of turn. Where are those cavalry? On reroll for the French. Yes, so they've got 3 ADCs and the Russians 2. Having had a long think about this, I've given a brigade reroll to the Grenadiers. But more importantly, Cul de Sac has gone over to the cavalry and he's doing a Commander-in-Chief command, stand with me. Which won't do a great deal apart from making sure they will move, and I'll take a casualty off the rearmost dragoon regiment. I think I'm going to be pulling them back and trying to buy some time. Russians have an artillery assault, quelle surprise. All brigades are compliant. Advantage to the French. So casualties go down to 4, and that brigade will retire. The Russian centre will advance. Skirmishers will push up. I guess the line will shuffle forward. as will the Russian left flank. Two lonely French grenadier battalions facing 2 brigades worth of Russian musketeers. It's not looking good. It's skirmish action first. We'll do this brigade's skirmish line, 4 dice, 3 hits, 1 casualty. The left-hand group of skirmishers, 5 dice, 4 hits, 2 casualties, and there's nothing the French can do about that. Russian 9-pounder battery, artillery assault, effective range, 3 extra casualty dice. And that's 3 casualties. And that is the end of turn. Well, it's not good news on the Russian left. They've got a hesitant brigade here, the Luger Musketeers. However, the Pskov Musketeers are good to go. And obviously the Dragoons are not happy. They've gone hesitant as well. Initiative. Well, poor rolling by the Russians there. Dear oh dear. Goes to the French. Well, you can move back if you are hesitant, which is what they're going to do. Right, in my excitement, I started to move the French. I shouldn't have done so because we've got a charge action here by the Pskov Musketeers. So I'll do that now. They'll be aiming for the Grenadiers here. 2d6 plus 6. So that's 12. Plus 9, 21. That is more than enough to get in. So the Grenadiers will open fire on inferior volley because of the number of casualties, but they get 1 extra casualty dice because they are veteran in line. 1 casualty. The supporting battalion will also open fire, but they're a weak volley because they're small. 2 casualties and a discipline test. The Russians are line, so they're okay there. Now we're going to resolve the charge. French will have 3 dice because of those casualties, but they do get a re-roll because they are veteran. Well, the Russians also get a re-roll because they're supported, forgot that, so they're going to do that 1. And the French will re-roll that 1. So that's a win by 1 for the Russians. Combat with Elan, defender unformed. Right, we'll come back to that in a minute. Russian right flank, they're lagging behind here, so they'll reform into column. Push that skirmisher screen to the front. And I think that's about it. And finally, the first of the French Corps cavalry arrive, chasseurs and hussars. But I'm afraid General Partizan is too late. Pskov Musketeer skirmishers have just moved over here so they can fire at the Grenadiers. 4 dice. No effect. Both 9-pounder batteries can still hit the cavalry, and that's what they're going to do. 1 casualty dice only for the left-hand battery because of the long range and the number of casualties they have. 1 casualty. And inferior battery fire for the right-hand battery. Another casualty. Unfortunately for the French, the Grenadiers can't fire because they've already fired this turn. It's time for combat, and the Russians are closing with Elan. 6 dice for the Russians, 4 for the French. Now 3 casualties on the French. And 4 on the Russians. The losers will retreat, and the Russians will take the ground. And I'm afraid because they've got more than 6 casualties and there's nobody behind them, they are going to be dispersed. Dear oh dear, those Grenadiers have gone. Sacre bleu. And it's no great surprise as what's left of the brigade is going to falter. And that is the end of the turn. General Cul de Sac looks on aghast as one of his Grenadier units goes streaming past him. They've broken. The cavalry are close to collapse over on the left. There's only 1 small Grenadier battalion to his front, and they're getting surrounded by the Russians. And it's time to retreat quickly. That is it. Cul de Sac will give up the battlefield to the Russians. He's had enough. His troops have had enough. And it's a disaster for Lemmerde to his northern flank. Russians are running amok. The only saving grace is the Corps cavalry is just about to come to the rescue, so all they can do is cover the retreat and make sure it doesn't turn into a complete and utter rout. But that is it. French have been defeated.